Good morning. This morning I'd like to talk for a bit about my ideas and my suggestions and my experience in relation to having a successful family. It's a delicate topic, obviously, so if you're prone to feel hurt or offended, maybe don't watch this. I understand that everyone's got a different situation, different circumstances, different upbringing, and so some of the things that I share may not be completely applicable to you. On the other hand, if I mention qualities which maybe you don't have, maybe this could inspire you to go out and work on those. Because when it comes to having a successful family, successful marriage, successfully raising up kids, as it turns out, all these qualities really matter a lot. And if you don't think they do, then you're probably going to be really disappointed. And so I speak as one having some credibility in this. I've been married for 23 years, 24 years, sorry. Got 8 kids. And all of our kids are healthy, happy, and they're doing well for the most part. You know, there's always challenges. There's always going to be challenges for sure. But one thing that's interesting is we've moved around the country, met lots of people. Everyone always remarks about how happy our kids are. We got super happy kids, every last one of them. They're happy, they're well behaved, they're respectful, they do well in school, they're going places. Some perhaps more than others, but they're all great kids. And I like to think that part of that is how they were raised. And so, to begin with that, who you select to marry makes all the difference. It can make all the difference, especially if you really screw up, then that's really detrimental. But you know, that can be fixed too, or not. Good luck with that end. But for me, you know, I got back from serving a mission for the LDS Church back in '97. I went on a mission to Sweden and learned a lot there. When I got back, I was ready to be married. At least I thought I was. It took me a few years. I think I got married about 2 years after I got back. But I went to college, studied to be a pilot, and was on the lookout for a wife. I had one girlfriend, just one, before I met my wife. I went on some dates, not a lot. The biggest issue I had when I was out there trying to find a suitable spouse was finding a girl that I thought was attractive but not materialistic and worldly. And so right off the bat, there are some things that turned me off. I remember I dated one girl. She was really nice, Um, it was kind of weird. We went to a carousel, and she insisted that we share a bowl of ice cream. We both eat from the same bowl of ice cream, which I thought was really intimate. I thought it was kind of weird too, but that was kind of intimate. And but her deal was that she never would wear the same set of clothes twice, and that scared me off. So even though she was prone to intimacy, I did not go out on a second date with her. And another girl I met, she again, super pretty, which is important. You gotta be attracted to whoever you marry, right? But she was pretty sensitive to any kind of criticism, and her father was a pharmacist, and I had a low opinion, still do, of the pharmaceutical industry, and so I didn't really even give her the chance. But it was obvious she was she wanted to go out with me. There's another girl I could talk about all day in my ethics and values classes. She was super pretty. In fact, she was so pretty. Well, let's put it this way. She asked if I ever dated, and I said I do. But I just been through a breakup, and I wasn't feeling like it. But the real reason I didn't want to go out with her was that she was so sexually alluring that I didn't think I'd be able to control myself, and so I stayed away from that one. Maybe that's too much information. I don't know. I was like, you know what? You know, where the devil calls, don't go. So, on kind of on that note, throughout the years, where you can tell that I find a girl extra attractive, and there's some temptation there, because I won't be very nice to her, because that's just my auto defense mechanism, you know. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm feeling temptation, and so I'm going to be kind of mean and bark a little bit, be kind of a jerk. Not always, but that's been my typical response. You know, you got to stay out of trouble. But anyway, this is probably too much information. But I'm working on the authenticity thing. The other thing that I really found unattractive, and women still do, is when they do too much to try to enhance themselves. I do not like it when women wear makeup, period. Don't like long fingernails, don't like extra eyelashes. If you're gonna put on some makeup, make it so that I can't tell. That's just me, because I really find the vanity, the materialism, to be a pretty big turnoff. So when I met the woman that I married, I thought she was wonderful from the very moment I first saw her. And I had been praying that I would be able to recognize the girl I was supposed to marry when I met her. And I did. It was, I don't know, I talked to my wife about this. She's like, please don't share too much, Jared. So maybe I'll be careful. I got lots of stories I could share. But short story is I thought my wife was fantastic from the moment I met her. She did not wear makeup. Very, very down to earth. And she was interested in me, you know, so there you go. Some funny stories there. I'm gonna not tell the funny stories, because anyway. But there were several things there that were markers for me in assessing values. The value in her. I really liked her family background. She came from kind of Mormon pioneer stock. Her parents were both quite older. They'd had her in their old age. And so she was very old-fashioned in most ways. She'd grown up in a very, very academic family. Academics were very, very important. She was a National Merit Scholar. She was going to the university there on a full ride scholarship. She obviously could think. And for me, that still is extremely important. Not that you have to, not that that's necessarily a requirement for a good wife. There are lots of great women that don't have any, university background. That's fine. But as it happened, that's what my wife was, where she was at, and I could tell that she was smart. Her father had been to Harvard, and he was the dean of a business school up north for a time. So my wife really understands finance, which is something I hate. I hate finance. And so, I go out and I do the work and she does the finances, which is perfect for me. She also has traveled quite a bit. Growing up, been to Europe. Coming out of high school, she went to Africa on a sort of safari with her high school English teacher. They went to Giraffe Manor and they saw all kinds of crazy animals. Did some crazy things in Africa for a couple of weeks. I thought that was pretty cool. That was pretty gutsy of her. She grew up, her dad was a pilot as well. Not professional, but he was a pilot. They did a lot of hiking and camping, canning, sewing, a lot of your pioneer fundamentals were there. And those were things that I really, really valued. Also, as we dated, I talked about, where I wanted to go in the future with my family. I said, hey, I want to have a lot of kids, which we do have a lot of kids at this point. And I'm a big fan of homeschooling, and I'm so anyway, so we talked about all that, and very quickly as we would go on drives, we were like, where's the party? We're supposed to be married. Why don't we have a bunch of kids in the back seat? And so we took care of that. And so that was some background in terms of the dating scene. I wanted a good old-fashioned girl who was smart, witty, clever, bold. She didn't have a problem putting me in my place when she needed to, telling me off. We had a few ups and downs, but we always kind of got back together again. And so anyway, as I think back about what to share, I keep on thinking of funny stories that my wife would probably be a little upset if I shared. So anyway, so after we were married, she wouldn't be upset if I shared them one-on-one, but not on a YouTube video. So there you go. If you're a friend of mine already, and you want to talk about that, give me a call. So we got married in the Jordan River Temple, and skipping forward, I was assigned as a home teacher, kind of a home minister, to a lady in the ward who was a midwife. And so that was one of the immediate blessings of going out there and doing my duty, as the LDS folks call it, a priesthood holder. So I was assigned as a home teacher to this younger lady who was a midwife, and I think I visited her maybe 2 or 3 times, but she educated me about the value of natural childbirth, and breastfeeding, and not allowing your children to be vaccinated, homeschooling. She was awesome. So that was a huge blessing right off the bat. I became indoctrinated in the virtues of natural childbirth, homeschooling, not getting all these terrible vaccines, and so forth. And so that really helped me get on the right path. And I came home, I talked to my wife about all that. And so those have been things that have been very important to us in our marriage, raising our kids. And so all of our children have been birthed naturally, except for the last 2 twins. Being twins, that was a little bit different. So in that case, my wife kind of went along more of the standard route there, epidural and so forth. But that worked out as well. So we're big fans of natural childbirth, not pumping all these chemicals into the mother, which go into the child and can cause all kinds of huge problems. There's all kinds of detachment disorders that can take place when you don't do things naturally in terms of childbirth. I'm a huge fan of breastfeeding. If you use a bottle instead, again, there's all kinds of huge problems that often will take place as a result of that. Do your own research with that. And then in terms of vaccines, from day one, I said no vaccines. Of course, my wife's brother's a doctor who talked her into, well, we ought to get this and this. And so our oldest received some vaccines. And I can't remember if it was after the first or second round. I think it was the first. He came home and he started doing that blood-curdling scream, which is what happens when you pump heavy metals into the bloodstream and it goes into the brain starts swelling, and the little baby feels like his head's gonna explode. They talk about this. And so I said a prayer. I said, Lord, I'm not perfect or anything, but based on the innocence of my child and the love that Jesus has, please allow me to bless my little baby boy and heal him, which I did. I placed my hands on his head, and I blessed him in the name of Jesus Christ, and that ceased. I do think that there was some damage done. He's had issues with attention, call it attention deficit disorder maybe. He definitely had some issues as a result of that, but it did not get worse, and he didn't die, so that's nice. After that, I was like, no more vaccines, because when you pump these vaccines into these little babies, it has 3 or 4 times the effect it does on adults. And we got all these kids with all these huge mental problems, and I am convinced that those are, in most cases, the result of these hideous vaccines. Another thing which we've done, which I am a very firm believer in, is what they call the family bed. Our kids have all slept with us up until they're about 2 or 3 years old. Baby is in bed with mom and dad, and from day one they feel the comfort and the security of knowing that the mom is there, and they don't feel abandoned. My personal belief is that putting kids in a crib in another room, making them cry themselves to sleep all the time, is a horribly cruel thing to do. I don't think it's right. And I think that your kid's gonna have some pretty big emotional problems because of that, feeling abandoned and just feeling rather hollow inside. You're gonna have some big problems if you do that, in most cases. So we've always had the family bed. We have typically 2 queen-size beds pushed up next to each other, and that way we have space. I'll tell you what, it's hard. It's very, very hard doing that. If you and your wife want to get together, what do you do with this little tyke? You know, that can be really, really rough. It takes a real man to do that. There's a lot of sacrifice, incredible amount of sacrifice involved with doing the family bed, breastfeeding, all that. But I think it's very, very well worth it. And so, you know, you can do research on that as well. There's of course lots of arguments for and against all these things. Make your own decision. I will tell you this: we got the happiest kids there ever were, and they're all great learners, and they're very, very well behaved. Very well behaved. There's other ways to teach kids discipline besides putting them in another room to sleep, starting when they're just a few days old. So anyway, that's my thoughts and feelings about that. Another is homeschool. We've always homeschooled our kids from day one. There's just far too much going on at public schools that is extremely risky, and most of that is from what your kids are gonna pick up from the other kids. So you'll do your best to have a home where they're not watching horrible things on television, not playing all these computer games. You know, you're doing all these things right. Your home's a holy sanctuary, a place of safety and holiness. Then you send your kids off to public school, and you've just thrown all your kids right into the swamp with the alligators. And you gotta be freaking insane to do that. Absolutely insane. Of course, there's gonna be exceptions. There was for us when we lived in Sheridan, Wyoming for a year. They're very conservative out there. We prayed about it. There's a grade school just like half a block away, and for that school year our kids went to the public school there, but their teacher was also the primary president. We already knew the people there, and the Lord told us that in that case that was the right thing to do, and that actually really helped us, because we've been doing homeschooling, and it actually really helped us to have our kids spend a year at that public school grade school in Wyoming and kind of see how everybody else does it, and that really was a big boost for them, spending a little bit of time in the public schools. Otherwise, we've homeschooled. My wife is very, very awesome for doing that. Very, very diligent. Since we moved to where we're at, we now put our kids in a private school. When they hit about 7th grade, there's a private school in town which we really love. They kind of advertise themselves as the private school for burned out homeschoolers. And if you ever tried homeschooling more than 2 or 3 kids at a time, you'll know what I mean. You know, if your wife homeschools, if you come home from work, you find her curled up in the closet, hiding from the kids. I just say that in jest. It's never really happened to me, but you get the idea. It's tough. It's extremely difficult because you're always going to have kids that fight back, don't want to do their work, don't want to concentrate, and require constant attention and disciplining. And that's really tough to deal with if you're doing all the homeschooling all by yourself, your husband's at work. But so yeah, we're big homeschoolers, go to the homeschool conventions. My wife knows all the curriculums. She's a member of this I don't know if it's like a Facebook group, some kind of a group, and they have a fancy title, but I call it the Mothers of Families of Unusual Size. And so there's all these moms out there that have got, I think, at least 5 kids, I think it is, and they support and advise each other on best tactics for dealing with all that. And they had some big falling out, and they reorganized, and I don't know if they do much these days, but I'm sure they're probably still out there. There's probably multiple groups like that. But if you're going to do homeschooling, you want to find collaboration and support from other homeschooling parents, families, trying to do things together. You know, and I could talk about homeschooling all day long. Going out and talking to other people. I tell people that my kids are homeschooled. They're always like, well, what about socialization? They're not going to be socialized. And I'm like, well, that's actually a huge part of the point. I don't want them socialized, as it were, and indoctrinated into the philosophies of the world. I don't want them to become socialists or communists or fascists or Darwinists, social Darwinists, or any of those things. I don't want them to be involved in the peer groups that take place in public schools. Are my kids shy, social outcasts? No, they're absolutely not. My kids are the most forward, rambunctious kids you ever met, because they still, for good or evil, they still go to church, and we have all kinds of activities with other people, so my kids get around, and they're very, very happy, outgoing, exuberant kids. And so there hasn't been really any issues there. With my oldest, you know, he got involved in a homeschool football team when he was like 7, and he's always been kind of bigger. He did gymnastics when he was a kid, and so he was out there in his football gear doing cartwheels. And when he go to church, the other boys never picked on him because they knew he played football and he was a big kid. And he was very, very happy. Why would you want to pick on him? He was just this really, really happy, affable boy growing up. And then my other son, I had him in Taekwondo. Didn't want him picked on. He's never had a problem with that. Have they been popular? No. Especially at church. They've never been in the in crowd at church. I actually think that's really a good thing. That's really a good thing. So again, I could talk about this all day. So homeschooling is super important. Not letting your kids anywhere near any of the vaccines is super important. Spending time with your kids, go on vacations, go on trips, go camping, hiking. These are all really, really important things. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with all that. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to mention here. I'm sure I'm forgetting some really important things, but I think I've hit on the big ones. And then, big one, huge one, I almost forgot, is family scriptures. Sitting down as a family each day to read the Book of Mormon, the Bible, the scriptures together, having family prayers is vitally important. Vitally important. We have not been perfect at that, but we've done pretty good. Pretty good. Worst case, you do it before everyone goes to bed. Best case, do it first thing in the morning. But we like to get gathered together, read the scriptures together, sing together, pray together. Family hugs. Everyone give each other hugs, especially growing up. Little kids tend to become emotionally starved. And so after we pray, everybody hugs everybody. I remember when I was growing up, I felt that very, very keenly. I didn't get physical affection at all from anybody, hardly. When I was a boy growing up, nobody hugged me. And just thinking about that makes me feel horrible. You know, kids need love. They do. They need love from their parents. They need love from their brothers and sisters. And if you don't give it to them, they're going to go to somebody else who will pretend that they do. They're going to get involved in clubs, gangs. Your girls are going to go get boyfriends. Your boys are going to go get girlfriends. And it's going to be a train wreck and a dumpster fire. Another thing which is really important is sit down with your kids one-on-one, talk about their lives, do kind of an interview, ask them how things are going, give them some advice, talk about goals, help them set goals, get back to them, talk to them about this stuff. These are things that I've done, probably not as much as I should have, but they've been, my kids are always very, very receptive to time with dad, especially quality time with dad. Talking about their lives and letting them know that they're important to you. And then, as you're teaching your children, you should prophesy. You should prophesy. Seek the inspiration of heaven and tell them, communicate to them the blessings and the promises of God to his children. And as you do that, the spirit of revelation and prophecy will come over you. You will tell them things about themselves that they desperately need to hear from somebody. And the best person to hear these things from are their parents. They're from you. And so, having Jesus Christ be the center of your home is the best thing you can do. Having Jesus Christ be the center of your marriage is the best thing you can do. And if you replace that with something else, if you replace that with an institution, with institutional leaders, with idolatry, media worship, video games, whatever it is, other priorities, then you're going to fail. You're absolutely going to fail. And so, making sure that Jesus Christ is always the center of your heart, the center of your marriage, the center of your home, having faith in Christ, repenting of your sins, doing the best you know how, doing what you sincerely believe he would do every moment of your life is the best thing you can do. And teach your kids to do that. And learn to detect the lies of Satan. That should be a study. You should learn to detect the lies of Satan. And that's actually been on my to-do list to make a video about that for several months. I've got a long list of things that Satan does to deceive, lies that he tells to deceive. And one of these days I'll get around to making that video, probably a whole series of videos on that topic. You need to know the lies and the tactics of the adversary so that you can identify those and know when Satan is rearing his ugly head to deceive and to lead you astray. One of the biggest problems we have in family life is that we don't put our faith and trust in God. We put our faith and trust in institutions and institutional leaders who do not have our best interests at heart. They're not just, they're not righteous, they're not holy men, and they're definitely going to do their best to appear that they are, but they're not. You can tell that they're not because they do not do what the scriptures tell us to do. And they do the things the scriptures tell us not to do. And I published a book entitled The Book of Mormon, A Witness and a Warning, where I go into lots and lots and lots of detail with hundreds of footnotes as to what the scriptures tell us to do and not do. And then I draw parallels to the churches and show how the churches that are guilty of violating all these divine directives. But it seems that very, very, very few people care about that. And in as much as they don't care, and in as much as they disregard the counsels of heaven, they're going to perish. They're going to be filled with sorrow so great they cannot bear it. And so we need to be paying attention to these things. So I think that concludes this video. Have a blessed day.